When Jonathan Roumie, the beloved actor who brings Jesus to life in The Chosen, walked through LAX airport last Tuesday, he thought his biggest worry was catching his connecting flight to Atlanta. But when a stunning brunette in a flowing white dress suddenly dropped to one knee in front of hundreds of shocked travelers and declared her undying love, his world shattered in ways he never imagined possible. The woman didn't just propose. She claimed they had been secretly married for 3 years. She had documents, photos, and intimate details about his life that no stranger should ever know. But here's what made Jonathan's blood run cold, what made security rush to the scene, and what nearly destroyed his career in a single moment. This beautiful woman knew things about him that only 3 people in the entire world were supposed to know. Things so private, so deeply personal, that Jonathan had never spoken them aloud to anyone except his closest family members. Yet here she was, in front of rolling cameras and live streams, revealing secrets that could end everything he'd worked for. The most terrifying part? Some of what she was saying was actually true. Jonathan Roumie stood frozen in Terminal 4, watching the stranger claim to be his wife while hundreds of phones captured every second, and in that moment he realized someone had been watching him, studying him, and preparing for this exact moment for years. The question that would haunt him for weeks wasn't whether she was telling the truth about their marriage. The question was, how did she know what happened in his childhood bedroom when he was 12 years old, and why was she wearing his grandmother's ring? If this woman's shocking claims weren't immediately investigated and proven false, Jonathan Roumie's entire world would crumble in ways that would make headlines around the globe. Think about it. Jonathan isn't just any actor. He's the man who portrays Jesus Christ in the most watched faith-based series in television history. Millions of Christians worldwide look up to him not just as an entertainer, but as a spiritual guide whose portrayal has deepened their relationship with their faith. A scandal like this, involving secret marriages and hidden relationships, would devastate that trust forever. The producers of The Chosen had invested over $200 million in the series, and Jonathan was the irreplaceable heart of it all. If these allegations gained traction, if the media ran with this story without knowing the truth, it wouldn't just end his career. It would potentially destroy one of the most important religious productions of our time. But the stakes went deeper than money or fame. Jonathan had spent years carefully building his reputation as a man of integrity. He'd turned down countless Hollywood roles that conflicted with his values. He'd dedicated his life to projects that uplifted and inspired people. One false story, one viral moment of lies, could erase decades of authentic work in minutes. Even worse, if this woman truly had access to his most private family secrets, it meant someone close to him had either betrayed his trust or something far more sinister was happening behind the scenes. The very safety of his family, his elderly parents, and his inner circle was now at risk. As phones continued recording and social media posts began spreading across the internet, Jonathan realized he had maybe hours, not days, to prove his innocence before the damage became irreversible. The woman standing before him held the power to destroy not just one man's career, but to shake the faith of millions who had found hope in his work. Jonathan Roumie walked through LAX Terminal 4 with the weight of exhaustion pressing down on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of international premieres, press conferences, and fan events for The Chosen's latest season. From London to Sydney, from Toronto to Mexico City, he'd been the face of hope for millions of viewers who saw something sacred in his portrayal of Jesus. But fame, even the kind that came with good intentions, was taking its toll. His phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, charity appearances, and script readings. Sleep had become a luxury he could barely afford, and quiet moments like this walk to his gate felt precious and rare. Jonathan checked his boarding pass for the 3rd time. Flight 447 to Atlanta, departing in 45 minutes. Tomorrow morning he would be on set for a crucial scene that had taken the writing team months to perfect. It was a moment that would define the entire season, and the pressure to deliver something meaningful, something that honored the character he portrayed, felt heavier than usual. The airport hummed with its usual chaos. Business travelers typed frantically on laptops, families dragged oversized suitcases toward security checkpoints, and somewhere in the distance, a child was crying while parents tried to calm them with promises of airplane snacks. Jonathan had learned to navigate these spaces carefully. Even with a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses on, fans occasionally recognized him. Most were respectful, asking for a quiet photo or sharing how the show had impacted their lives. Those interactions, despite his exhaustion, always reminded him why his work mattered. But something felt different today. As he passed through the crowded terminal, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Not the casual glances of curious travelers or the occasional double-take from a fan, but something more intense, more focused. He developed a sixth sense about this over the years. The feeling of being studied rather than simply noticed. When he glanced around, everyone seemed absorbed in their own travel dramas, but the sensation persisted like an itch he couldn't scratch. Jonathan was reaching for his coffee when he heard his name called out in a voice that seemed to cut through the airport noise like a blade through silk. "Jonathan, my beloved, I've been waiting for you." He turned slowly, coffee cup halfway to his lips, and saw her. A woman in her late 20s with cascading dark hair and striking green eyes was walking directly toward him with the confidence of someone who belonged in his life. She wore a flowing white dress that seemed almost bridal, and her smile was radiant, familiar, and completely terrifying because Jonathan had absolutely no idea who she was. But she was looking at him like he was the most important person in her world, like they shared years of intimate memories, like he was supposed to recognize her immediately. "I'm sorry," Jonathan said carefully, glancing around to see if this was some kind of elaborate prank or publicity stunt. "I think you might have me confused with someone else." The woman laughed, a sound that was both beautiful and chilling. "Oh, my darling, don't be shy. I know we agreed to keep our relationship private, but I can't hide my feelings anymore." Before Jonathan could process what was happening, she dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the terminal. Conversations stopped. Phones came out. A circle of curious travelers began forming around them like they were witnessing something magical. "Jonathan Roumie," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "you are the love of my life, my husband in spirit, my everything. I can't pretend anymore that we're just friends. Will you finally acknowledge our marriage and let the world know that we belong together?" Jonathan's mouth went dry. His heart started pounding so hard he could hear it over the airport announcements. This wasn't just a confused fan or an overzealous admirer. This woman was claiming they had a relationship, and she was doing it in front of dozens of witnesses who were now filming everything. "Ma'am, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding," Jonathan said, trying to keep his voice calm and gentle. "I don't know you, and we're definitely not married." But the woman's smile never wavered. If anything, it grew brighter, more confident. "Oh, Jonathan, I know you have to say that for the cameras. But remember our wedding day? March 15th, 3 years ago? The little chapel in Malibu? You wore your grandfather's watch, and I wore this." She held up her left hand, and Jonathan's world tilted off its axis. On her finger was a ring he recognized. Not similar to one he knew. The exact ring. His grandmother's vintage emerald ring that had been passed down through 3 generations of his family. The ring that had been stolen from his mother's jewelry box 2 years ago during a break-in that was never solved. The ring that police had told them was probably sold to a pawn shop and gone forever. "Where did you get that ring?" Jonathan's voice came out as barely a whisper, but the woman heard him clearly. "You gave it to me, my love. On our wedding night. You said it belonged to your grandmother Rose, and that she would have wanted me to have it because she always knew you'd find your soulmate." Jonathan felt the blood drain from his face. His grandmother's name was Rose. He'd never mentioned that publicly. Never shared that detail in any interview or social media post. The only people who knew about his grandmother Rose were his immediate family members. "You told me that your grandmother used to sing you lullabies in Italian when you had nightmares about the dark," the woman continued, her voice carrying across the growing crowd. "You told me that you still sleep with a light on because of what happened when you were 12, when you got locked in the basement during that thunderstorm." Jonathan took a step backward, his coffee cup slipping from his hands and crashing to the floor. The sound seemed to echo in his ears because what she had just said was impossible. The basement incident when he was 12 was something he'd never told anyone. Not his closest friends, not his colleagues, not even his therapists. It was a childhood trauma so personal, so deeply buried, that he'd convinced himself he might have imagined it. But this stranger was reciting details like she'd been there, like she'd lived through his most private moments. Security guards were approaching now, drawn by the crowd and the obvious distress on Jonathan's face. But the woman seemed completely unaware of the chaos she was causing. She stood up gracefully, still smiling, still wearing his grandmother's stolen ring like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I know this is overwhelming, darling," she said, reaching out as if to touch his face. "But I couldn't wait any longer. The world deserves to know about our love story." The woman stepped closer to Jonathan, completely ignoring the security guards approaching. "I know you're scared to tell everyone about us, my love," she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "But I brought proof." She reached into her white purse and pulled out a manila envelope thick with documents and photographs. "Here's our marriage certificate from the Chapel of Eternal Love in Malibu," she announced, holding up an official-looking document. "And here are photos from our honeymoon in Santorini." The pictures made Jonathan's stomach drop. They were professional photographs of the woman in beautiful Greek locations, but in the background of every image, barely visible, was Jonathan himself. He remembered that solo vacation vividly. He'd told no one except his assistant where he was going. Yet somehow, this woman had been there, photographing herself with him unknowingly in the frame. "You always loved watching the sunset from that little cafe near the harbor," she continued. "You ordered the same Greek salad every night at 7 o'clock. You sat at the corner table because you said it reminded you of your father's restaurant back home." Jonathan felt his knees weaken. His father had owned a small Greek restaurant when Jonathan was a child. It wasn't something he talked about publicly because the memory was too painful. But this woman was reciting his exact eating habits in Santorini with perfect accuracy. "Then there's this," she said, pulling out a hotel room keycard. "From the Hotel Artemis, room 247. That's where we spent our first night as husband and wife. You still have nightmares sometimes, so I made sure there was a night light in the bathroom. Just like you need at home." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through hundreds of photos showing her in various locations. Outside his gym in Los Angeles. Near the set of The Chosen in Utah. At a coffee shop in Nashville where he'd done interviews. In every photo, Jonathan could be seen in the background, completely unaware he was being photographed. "Think about all the signs," she said urgently as security moved closer. "The flowers that appeared in your hotel rooms with no card. That was me. The times you found your favorite coffee waiting at unexpected moments. I was taking care of you, just like a wife should." Jonathan's mind raced back through recent months. There had been strange coincidences he'd dismissed as paranoia from fame. She pulled out one final item that made Jonathan's heart stop completely. His personal prayer book that he kept in his trailer on set. The one his mother had given him when he first started acting. "You left this in our hotel room in Santorini," she said, holding it up like a trophy. "Your prayer on page 47 about finding someone to share your journey with? That's when I knew you were writing about me." The head of airport security, Detective Maria Santos, arrived within minutes of the commotion being reported. She'd seen her share of celebrity incidents, but nothing quite like this. A woman claiming to be secretly married to Jonathan Roumie, with what appeared to be convincing evidence, in front of hundreds of witnesses recording everything. "Mr. Roumie, I need you to step over here with me," Detective Santos said, guiding him away from the crowd while her team carefully collected the documents and photographs the woman had displayed. "Can you confirm whether you know this individual?" Jonathan's hands were shaking as he looked back at the woman, who was now being gently restrained but still smiling serenely. "I've never seen her before in my life," he said. "But detective, she has my grandmother's ring. It was stolen 2 years ago. And that prayer book, it was in my trailer just last week." Detective Santos made notes quickly. "We're going to need to verify everything she's shown us. Can you call someone from your team? We need to confirm your whereabouts during the dates she's mentioned." Within 20 minutes, Jonathan's assistant, security team, and legal representative were on conference calls with airport security. The investigation moved swiftly, but what they discovered made everyone more confused, not less. The marriage certificate appeared professionally made, complete with official-looking seals and signatures. The Hotel Artemis in Santorini confirmed that both names were in their guest registry for the dates in question, though they had been booked in separate rooms. Most disturbing of all, when they ran the woman's fingerprints, her identity came back as Sarah Michelle Chin, a 28-year-old former film student from Portland with no prior criminal record. She's been following your schedule for over 3 years, Detective Santos explained to Jonathan as they reviewed security footage from various locations. Look at this. The detective showed him surveillance videos from airports, hotels, and restaurants across multiple states. In every single one, Sarah could be seen in the background, always careful to stay out of direct sight, but close enough to observe Jonathan's every move. How did she get access to my personal items? Jonathan asked, studying the footage of Sarah somehow entering his trailer on the Utah set. We're still working on that, Detective Santos said. But Mr. Roumie, there's something else you need to know. Sarah Chin doesn't just think she's your wife. According to her social media accounts, which go back 4 years, she genuinely believes you two have been in a relationship this entire time. She's been documenting what she calls your life together, with detailed posts about dates you never went on, conversations you never had, and intimate moments that existed only in her mind. The detective pulled up Sarah's Instagram account on her tablet. Hundreds of posts showed Sarah in various locations, always captioned as if Jonathan were there with her. Beautiful dinner with my love at our favorite restaurant in Malibu. Jonathan surprised me with flowers today. Quiet night at home with my husband. Each post had dozens of comments from followers who seemed to believe the relationship was real. She's built an entire online world where you two are married, Detective Santos continued. She's been living in this fantasy for years, and somehow, she's managed to collect real evidence to support her delusions. The question is, how did she get so close to your personal life without anyone noticing? The breakthrough came when Detective Santos discovered something chilling in Sarah's apartment during a search warrant execution. Her Portland home looked like a shrine dedicated to Jonathan Roumie. Every wall was covered with photos, newspaper clippings, and detailed timelines of his life. But hidden in her bedroom closet was something that explained everything. A collection of uniforms and fake identification badges from hotels, film sets, cleaning services, and catering companies. Sarah hadn't just been following Jonathan. She'd been infiltrating his world by posing as staff members who had legitimate access to his private spaces. She worked as a hotel housekeeper in Santorini during your stay, Detective Santos explained over the phone. That's how she got into your room and took your prayer book? She also posed as a cleaning crew member on the Chosen set, which explains how she accessed your trailer. The investigation revealed Sarah's disturbing pattern. She'd taught herself to forge credentials, studied Jonathan's schedule through fan sites and social media, and systematically placed herself in his path for over 3 years. She'd stolen his grandmother's ring during a catering job at a charity event his mother attended. She'd planted flowers in his hotel rooms while working housekeeping shifts. She'd even managed to get hired as temporary craft services help, which explained the mysterious appearances of his favorite coffee. But the most shocking discovery was Sarah's medical history. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a psychiatrist brought in to evaluate Sarah, made a devastating diagnosis. Sarah suffers from erotomania, also known as de Clerambault syndrome, Dr. Walsh explained to the investigating team. It's a rare delusional disorder where the patient becomes convinced that someone, usually a celebrity or public figure, is in love with them. What makes Sarah's case particularly severe is her ability to organize and execute elaborate plans to support her delusions. The doctor continued, Sarah genuinely believes that Jonathan has been sending her secret signals through his performances in The Chosen. She interprets his portrayal of love and compassion on screen as personal messages meant specifically for her. In her mind, their relationship is completely real and mutual. Further investigation revealed that Sarah had quit her job as a film student 3 years ago to dedicate herself full-time to what she called supporting Jonathan's career and maintaining their relationship. She'd spent her entire inheritance following him around the country, learning skills like lock-picking, credential forgery, and surveillance techniques. She'd studied Jonathan's interviews obsessively, memorizing details about his childhood and family that she then wove into her elaborate fantasy. The scariest part, Detective Santos told Jonathan, is how organized and patient she was. Most stalkers are impulsive and careless. Sarah planned every encounter, every theft, every moment of infiltration with the precision of a professional operative. The truth was both a relief and a nightmare. Jonathan wasn't losing his mind, and he wasn't somehow forgetting a secret marriage. But he'd been living under surveillance by someone with severe mental illness who had managed to invade his most private moments for years without anyone noticing. How many other celebrities might be dealing with this same thing without even knowing it? Jonathan asked Detective Santos. It was a question that would haunt him long after the investigation was closed. With all the evidence gathered and Sarah's true condition understood, Detective Santos arranged for a final meeting between Jonathan and Sarah in a controlled environment. Jonathan had insisted on this meeting despite his legal team's advice against it. "I need to understand why," he told them, "and maybe I can help her find some peace." In the airport's private security office, Sarah sat calmly across from Jonathan, still wearing his grandmother's ring, still convinced they were married. The delusion remained unbroken despite everything that had been revealed. "Sarah," Jonathan said gently, his voice filled with the same compassion he brought to his most meaningful roles, "I know you believe we have a relationship, but I need you to understand that I've never met you before today. The feelings you have are real to you, but the relationship exists only in your mind." For the first time since the airport encounter, Sarah's serene confidence wavered. "But the signs," she whispered, "all the signs you sent me through your performances. The way you looked at the camera during that scene in season 3. You were looking at me." Jonathan leaned forward slightly. "Sarah, when I perform, I think about bringing hope and love to everyone watching. If you felt something beautiful from that, I'm grateful. But it wasn't a personal message meant just for you. It was meant for all the millions of people who needed to feel loved and valued." Something shifted in Sarah's eyes. For just a moment, the elaborate fantasy seemed to crack, and Jonathan could see the lonely, troubled young woman underneath. "I spent my whole life feeling invisible," Sarah said, tears beginning to fall. "But when I watched you on screen, I felt like someone finally saw me. I felt like I mattered to someone." Jonathan's heart broke for her. "You do matter, Sarah. Your life has value and meaning. But the love you're searching for can't come from building a fantasy around someone you've never truly met. You deserve real love, real relationships, real connections with people who can actually be part of your life." Dr. Walsh, who had been observing, stepped forward. "Sarah, we want to help you find that real connection. There are people who care about you and want to support you through this. But first, you need to return the items that belong to Mr. Roumie and his family." Slowly, Sarah removed the emerald ring from her finger and placed it on the table. She handed over the prayer book and the other personal items she'd collected. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I just wanted to be loved." Jonathan reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "You will be loved, Sarah. By the right people in the right way at the right time. But you have to let yourself heal first." Within hours, the airport incident was resolved. Sarah was transferred to a psychiatric facility where she would receive the help she desperately needed. Jonathan's legal team worked to have the viral videos removed from social media, and a carefully worded statement was released explaining that the incident involved a fan struggling with mental health issues. The most beautiful part of this story came 3 months later. Jonathan received a letter from the psychiatric facility. Sarah, with proper treatment and medication, had begun to understand the difference between her fantasies and reality. She was working with therapists and had started rebuilding real relationships with her family. In her letter, she thanked Jonathan for treating her with kindness instead of anger, and for helping her find the path to genuine healing. Jonathan framed that letter and kept it in his trailer as a reminder that sometimes the most important role we can play isn't on screen, but in the moments when someone needs us to show them real compassion. The incident had been terrifying, but it taught him something profound about the responsibility that comes with touching people's lives through his work. Today, Jonathan continues his role in The Chosen with an even deeper understanding of how powerful storytelling can impact vulnerable hearts. He's also become an advocate for mental health awareness, using his platform to help others understand that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. As for Sarah, she's now living in a supervised care facility, building genuine friendships with her counselors and fellow patients. She still watches The Chosen sometimes, but now she understands the difference between being inspired by a story and living in a fantasy. Her healing journey continues, supported by people who care about her real self, not the characters she created to cope with her pain. This story reminds us that behind every headline about celebrity stalking, there's often a human being struggling with mental health issues who needs help, not judgment. It also shows us that true strength lies not in how we handle our triumphs, but in how we treat others during their darkest moments.